Well, hello neighbors. Welcome to my kitchen table. Got my drinking jacket on. I'm John, your whiskey neighbor. And today I'd like to talk about one I should have talked about a while ago. It's definitely a well-known rye, Sazerac Rye. Thanks for coming back after the break. Today I want to talk about Sazerac Rye. Certainly a well-known rye in a very classic bottle. And if you are a follower of the channel at all or have subscribed, you will know that I enjoy rye. And so I was very happy that I could finally find a bottle of this at a price that I like to pick up. If you also know, I like to find a good deal. Sazerac Rye is distilled by Buffalo Trace, which is part of the Sazerac group of distilleries and whiskeys. It's 45% or 90 proof. It's an American rye, which means it's at least 51% rye, made in America. But beyond that, I don't know the mash bill. And I did some, a little bit of searching, and certainly on Buffalo Trace. Their website or on Sazerac website, they don't release the mash bill, so I would really be guessing at what it is. Other than that, I know a little bit about the history behind this or releasing it this way, but I want to first talk about the whiskey. So on the nose, I think, I should say this Sazerac is sometimes affectionately called Baby Saz. It's a 6-year-old rye, so it's fairly young. It doesn't say 6 years on it, but that did come up quite reliably in research when I was looking online. So it's a six-year-old rye, 45%. I find the nose like a delicious nose. I say that because the way the sugars, I think it almost a bourbon nose. The corn must be in there. The sugars are up front. The fruits are a candied fruit, a sweet fruit. The spice in it is more like cinnamon for me. But sweet, approachable. I can catch a bit of the alcohol in there, but it's not crazy. It's well put together. Give it a taste. That's a tasty rye. I think the palate at front or at first kind of continues that nose. Fairly sweet, almost a bourbon sweetness. Caramel, toffee, or quick. But then I would say mid palate already, you start to pick up some of the rye spice. So that's, some black pepper mixed with cinnamon, maybe some other baking in there. Not overly so. So, the spiciness is towards a sweeter spicy, like a cinnamon spicy, like a cinnamon cookie, or like a rye. If there was such a thing as a ginger rye cookie, right? So it's got that crusty sugar, but that peppery spicy that's going to come from ginger and cinnamon or something like that. So it perks up on the tongue. But not as spicy as some other ryes. I would hesitate, or maybe not hesitate, I would suggest that full of flavor, delicious, but not as spicy as some higher rye content. Some of the high, what would that be? Lot 40 in Canada, Lot 40, a cask strength for sure. Even Bullet Rye has more rye pepper in it than this. there on the finish, and I've been talking a little bit, the finish isn't overly long, but that's where I think some of the wood comes out. But all the way through, you've got a caramel, honey, candied sweetness. The fruits that I can pick up on here would also be any kind of fruit you would associate with very, very sweet, but still crisp. Now that I'm thinking about it again, because I've heard it described this way, I didn't coin the idea, but I read it, and now when I taste it, that sweet and then the cinnamon spice, which is quite strong, almost tastes a bit like, if you remember Big Red, the gum, the way that would flavor up in your mouth, where it would kind of be spicy, but also got lots of that sweetness or whatnot. I like this rye quite a bit. I think I would serve it to someone who's interested in trying out ryes because of that higher sugar, a little bit towards bourbon. I mean, it's distinctive. It's still spicy and perks up, so it's still definitely a rye, but it's certainly a 4. Today, I'm even liking it a lot. I could go 4.5 stars on this. So really, I think that's great. Pricing is all over the map for this, just for my Canadian viewers. It sits around $60 in Alberta right now, which is quite high. So I picked this up at, or even 65 if you just go online on a few online retailers in Alberta. It's as high as 65. So I got it for almost about $20 less than that. So it felt like a steal. But as I was checking, I saw that, you know, in Ontario, it's normally a little bit less, around 55. So hard to say. Certainly not your least expensive rye, but what a great taste and great profile. Now I will share a little bit about the history. So as I have read and think about it, kind of a few websites were contradictory a little bit, but it looks to me like down in New Orleans, when coffee houses, or maybe they're saloons, but they became coffee houses. I'm not sure. They call them coffee houses, but they're serving alcohol. There was someone who would make a cocktail with Sazerac cognac, and that's the region it's from. That's the name it had, and so they were serving that in the coffee house, and then at some point, Thomas Handy purchased that, maybe 1870, somewhere in there, and there was it wasn't a blight. It was something that happened, so cognac became very expensive. And Thomas Handy changed the recipe in New Orleans to be with rye instead of the cognac, but they kept the name. And so I think the coffee house was called the Sazerac Coffee House at that point. It wasn't originally. And that became one of the first cocktails that is known to be from America. So I know that cocktail, I haven't made it, but I happen to have some actual absinthe. And I'm going to look for the Peychaud bitters. I don't have that. But really, it seems a very simple, some bitters over crushed sugar, put in the rye, and then in a separate chilled glass, you just kind of coat it with absinthe and dump it, which is interesting because there's a lot of flavor in absinthe, but you maybe don't want that much. But that's sort of the history as I understand it. And then as I shared with you earlier, Sazerac, this is the 6th year, affectionately known as Baby Saz. They do release it in the BTAC range, the 18-year-old, and then also there's a Thomas Handy release in that antique collection as well. So pretty cool stuff. If I were to shoot a quick comparison, if you're still with me, I've already given you my thoughts of Sazerac. I'm really enjoying it, but I thought a fair comparison might be with a Knob Creek rye. Now the proof is a little bit higher here. This is 100 proof or 50%. But my memory tells me that Knob Creek is also one that's kind of high sweetness. Well, but the fruit note's a little stronger on this rye. And definitely the rye hug or pepper spice comes through higher. So I thought I'd do a quick comparison there. If I was new to rye, or I just wanted to share a delicious drink, rye or not, I think I would pick Sazerac. I think it's a little better introductory or whatnot, but certainly that Knob Creek is fantastic, and maybe it's the little higher proof. It's got a great bite, so if you're looking for that, that Knob Creek's really good. Thank you so much for joining me today this summer at my kitchen table. And if you haven't tried Sazerac Rye and you like rye, I really think you should look for a bottle. Great taste, great presentation. You guys take care. Bye.